Hi everyone, thanks for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to talk to you for a few short minutes about how social, location, and mobile is really setting the base foundation for collaborative consumption. How many of you here are familiar with the term collaborative consumption or the sharing economy? So it's the idea of peer-to-peer marketplaces where people on the ground are connecting together offline based on an online connection that they've had. Is anyone here actually working in a marketplace sharing economy type business? Okay, not very many of you. Okay, cool. So this should be some interesting information. And as you think about connecting people both on and offline, how you can leverage social, location, and mobile to make that community really thrive. So first, a little bit about me. My story all started with a dog, like many stories do. I was a software engineer at IBM for 7 years, and I was at home one night with my husband. We were getting ready to go out to dinner. It was February of 2008. I remember this because it was cold and snowy outside, and we were living in Boston at the time. And we had called a cab to come pick us up when we realized we were out of dog food. And we have this 100-pound yellow lab named Kobe that just had to eat that night. My husband is also in technology, and so we always have these very geeky conversations in the house. And that night it turned into, wouldn't it be nice if there was just a place online we could go, say we needed dog food, name the price we were willing to pay. We were certain that there was someone in our own neighborhood that would be willing to help us out. Maybe even someone at the store at that very second, and it was just a matter of connecting with them. Even before the cab came to pick us up, I had grabbed my iPhone and I thought, if such a site existed, what would it be called? And so I typed into GoDaddy.com. I said, what about runmyerrand.com? And the domain was available. And as I'm sure you know, domain names are never available these days. So I took that as a sign, and I bought it right there on the spot. And then over dinner, it was Mexican food and margaritas. We started to think about what this company might look like and what it might be. About a year after Run My Errand, buying that domain, we changed the name to TaskRabbit. It took about 20 minutes before I decided I hated the name runmyerrand.com. But anyways, I was still at IBM at the time, and the next 4 months were really critical. I just started networking and talking to anyone who would listen to me about this idea I had. One of the folks I met was Scott Griffith, who's the CEO of Zipcar. And I didn't know Scott ahead of time. He was a friend of a friend of a friend. And I was out to dinner one night, and they said, I think my buddy Scott will really think your idea is neat. Why don't you just email him? And they gave me his email address. And so I went home. Ignorance is bliss. I cold emailed Scott Griffith and said, hey, Scott, this is my idea. Your friend thought you might find it interesting. Can we meet to discuss? And to his credit, he wrote back very quickly, and he's super supportive of innovation and entrepreneurs in the Boston area in particular. And so we met a few weeks later, just really hit it off. And a lot of the things that he thinks about with Zipcar, connecting people in a neighborhood to share resources, to share cars, to get people to live more efficiently together, was very much the way I was thinking about TaskRabbit. 4 months later, I decided to quit my job at IBM and build the first version of the site. So the conversations with Scott became, how do we go from social networking, which at the time was becoming really, really popular, remember this is 2008, into something that I dubbed service networking, which is about connecting people in real life to get real things done. So I mentioned that social networking was becoming really popular. So Facebook was just launching sort of out of the college scene. Twitter was up and coming. Location-based platforms like Foursquare and Gowalla were on the scene, but they didn't have a ton of traction yet. And all of a sudden, the iPhone was really taking off. So these three technologies, social, location, and mobile, I decided were going to be this core foundation for this new platform that I wanted to build called a service networking platform. The key was technology gives us access to a global group of people all over the world. But if we can start to leverage technology as a local tool, it becomes really interesting. And the key is to leverage technology to create efficiency and trust in your community. So that's a bit about me. What I'm going to talk to you about now is taking a look at social, location, and mobile through the lens of collaborative consumption and peer-to-peer marketplaces. I believe that these three pieces of technology over the past 3 to 4 years have really provided an interesting foundation, and we're starting to see a groundswell form with all these different peer-to-peer marketplaces popping up. There's not only TaskRabbit, but there's also Airbnb, there's also ThreadUp, there's Relay Rides, there's GetAround. I feel like every time I turn around, there's another really cool collaborative consumption company forming. So this is a major trend, and these three pieces of technology are what is enabling it. So let's start with social. My first point is that it is not about social media. And I'm sure everyone here in the room can understand that, but you'd be surprised how often particularly 3 years ago when I went and were talking to people, particularly pitching to investors, and I'd say social and location and mobile, coming together to create this offline network. They're like, oh yeah, social media. Yeah, that's great virality. You're gonna be able to really grow your business through sharing on Facebook and Twitter. And that's not what I was talking about at all. Really, social allows us to provide a trusted connection between people, both on and offline. So when you think about trust, there's a couple pieces to trust building. One, there's your identity. Are you who you say you are? You have an identity online. How does that translate offline? Are you a real person? Number two, reputation. So if you are who you say you are, what is your reputation online? How do you interact with people? What do people say about you? How do they rate and review you? Those are a few examples. So when you start to think about trust building and social, it's all about leveraging the social graph. Now, people have gotten comfortable with sharing online, with getting connected online, sharing status updates, sharing photos, not only on Facebook, but in LinkedIn. You have professional networks as well. An interesting thing to consider here is how does the social graph on Facebook differ from the social graph on LinkedIn? And when you're leveraging those two different social graphs, what kind of factors do you have to think about when you're trying to build trust between people? Are people more apt to trust recommendations from their friends or colleagues? Well, I think it depends on the marketplace that you're building. This is one example of how Airbnb is using social graph as a verification for identity. So you can have a Facebook profile. You can see that you have, over 600 friends. Yes, you're a real person. The other piece around reputation and leveraging the social graph is also really powerful. So this is a search I did quickly on Airbnb, and I was looking for a place to stay in Yosemite. Now, you can see that I'm connected via Facebook, so I can see that I'm also connected with this host and 104 of my friends. This is across Facebook and LinkedIn, so that's interesting. So I'm, a degree of separation away from this person hosting on Airbnb. I can also see that some of my friends are actually friends with this host, so that makes me more able to trust this host as well. You can also see that a person that I trust, one of my friends, has actually reviewed this host. So that's pretty interesting. Taking it a step further, I can also see how many degrees of separation I am away from another person on these online communities, so that when I have this offline interaction, I feel like there's some trust involved. Now, you could see how perhaps this would also translate to TaskRabbit. If there's a TaskRabbit that you want to hire and you know that your friends have also trusted them as well, you'd be more apt to trust them too. Location is huge. Again, with the trust building. If you know someone checks in every day to the same gym as you, are you more able to trust them? Perhaps. It's possible. It gives you a better feeling about it. When you pair that with that real-time interaction, it just provides a lot of context to the offline interaction. So Alana here is a TaskRabbit going to get groceries. If you know that she's on her way, she's 2 minutes away, in providing that context of the offline transaction through location, that becomes very interesting. Also on TaskRabbit, location allows us to provide a lot more intelligence around alerting, and this is a pretty obvious one, but being able to alert smarter in a cheaper and more efficient way is really important. Now, the last thing around mobile is all about, for us, we've looked at it through this lens of providing signature interactions. So we had a goal with our mobile app to be able to allow users to post a task in under 30 seconds without ever typing anything. And so to do that, we leveraged interactions on mobile through design that were completely different than anything we could ever do on the web. So the example I'm going to show you here is the carousel, where you're able to kind of swipe through in a fun way and pick your task you want to post. You'll notice that the top wedge here is a little bit hidden. So this is actually a carousel that has an infinite number of task types, and we can dynamically load from the server different types of task types depending on users' behavior. So when you're thinking about leveraging mobile, I think it's important to think about what sort of cool interactions that you can do on the phone that you can't do anywhere else. So in closing, I would like to just share that my story with you. And I went from an engineer into becoming an entrepreneur and made this leap. One of my mentors, Scott Griffith, had said to me, Leah, I love your idea. I think you should see how far you can take it. And that's what I continue to do on a daily basis. I encourage you guys, if you're thinking about different marketplace models or businesses, to take the leap, see how far you can take it, as I did, as Kobe did here, and just go for it. So. Thank you.